All right, welcome back. I want to just review a couple things and move on to doing some loop control with Groove. I have a buffer object. It's named machine. It currently has sound file loaded. Groove is playing the audio that's loaded in the buffer named machine. I'm using, instead of a floating point number going into a sig tilde object, I'm using a number tilde object in constant generation, signal generation mode, the down arrow. Can feed it other floating point numbers and it will replace the value. I'm using messages to do pitch shifting, either by ratio or by cent. Um, I can do anything with messages. I can do with attributes, which I'm doing over here with time stretch, quality mode, and whether looping's on or off, or I can do them with messages. So I'm just showing you both ways in this one patch. Then what I want to do now is start introducing the ability to loop and control the loop points. Right now, if I type in lock the patch, the entire file is looping, and that's the default. I want to control that, so I'm going to start with adding just floating point number boxes to my loop minimum point and my maximum point. Bring them out over here. So if I go back to playing, just start for a quarter of a second. And I can stop things. So can do that with mouse control. I can also maybe want to reset the loop to the entire sound file and do that very quickly. Easiest way to send a 0 to both the beginning and the end. And I'm going to do that by inserting a message with the value of 0, decimal point. Have that go to both. And have just another message. Well, I'm actually just going to do this with a button and a comment. And so then if I send the 0 and restart, I've got the whole file looped again. So that gives me some quick changes that I can make to get back to a default. Now, something that would be useful is to know a little bit about how long the sound audio file is loaded, that's loaded into buffer. Since timing in Groove is absolute in milliseconds, I'd like to be able to update maximum loop points and not go over my loop points when I'm adjusting these controls. So unlock the patch. Buffer will send out a bang when a file read operation is completed. That's useful because then I can feed that into an info object. And it needs a buffer name. Sorry. And I'll expand this a little bit because it has a lot of outputs. And I'll tell you everything you really want to know about the sound file. Sampling rate. If there's a sample instrument list, sustain loop, it'll tell you loop points for sustain and release. And finally over here, the total time in milliseconds of the file that's loaded is what I want. So a floating point. And now whenever I load a file, I can just reload the same one. Saw it bang really quickly as the file dialog was closing. And that bang to info says report on the file that's loaded into machine. Tells me that it's 1613 milliseconds, 0.78685, probably rounded. So I want to connect that to the objects that I have to control the loop, the number objects. First, to do that, I want to first set that this is the max. I can't, if I've loaded a sound file that's 1613 milliseconds long, I can't have a loop point that goes beyond that. So I can adjust what are the minimum and maximum values of my number boxes by sending messages. Going to do this with an object called prepend, and the symbol that I want to prepend is max. That sets the maximum limit for the floating point number. So what's going to happen is input comes in to prepend this number. It is going to have the message max inserted before it, and I'll print this out. So do the same thing again. Go over here to my console, and it says max 1613 786 848. So this is rounded. This is the actual precise length. Unlock. And then I can send this to both number boxes. And I can start to clean things up a little bit, maybe segment some patch cords, maybe not. We'll just keep going like this. It's pretty clear. So now, if I do this again, and I don't have to reload the file this time, I'm just going to hit bang, sends that number again. And now I cannot drag my loop points. 1614 is rounding. There it is. I can't drag either one past that maximum value. Cuts off. If I try to type something in, 2000, it jumps back to the maximum. So I can't go past the sound file with my loop points. Helpful. Can reset the loop points. And just everything's still running. Careful. If I click on this icon, it changes from a monitoring mode to a generation mode. And I want to use it to generate. Okay. All fine and good. So let's keep going. I've got the max times. Now I want to set up Midi Control. And I'm going to do that with a Midi controller and control in messages. So let me get that connected because I started the video without it. And things are going so well that I don't want to stop the video. So get that. Connect things up pretty quickly here. And now I have. So let's adjust some things. I'm going to need scale objects to control these floating point numbers to set the range, controller numbers. Let's go unlock. Let's go control in 12. And it's always good at this point to check your work and make sure you're getting what you think. Scale 0 to 127 as integers from 0. And let's just going to put 1000 because that's the length of the buffer. So that's my default. And then I can connect that over here. And I can copy it, option drag the whole thing, change that to 16, move that over here, and now would be a good time to option drag over the patch cords and clean up that mess. And if I have this right, 12 will be my starting point, 16 is my end point for my loop. I can bang info again to pass, well actually now I need to connect one last thing. So since this is my max point, I need this information without the message max to be the end point of scale, my high output value. So let's go over here. Hook it up there. And again, here. And now I'll get this information out again, because if I start now playing, and the max is the total loop. And so I'm going to do one last thing to make this work really well. If I load a new file, I'm going to get max information about how long the loop can be, but probably I want to jump to looping the whole file if I load another thing in. So the same thing, once I get the max, I can run a patch cord over here to the bang button. Any input to the button will trigger a bang message. So I'm going to set up my max points for the numbers. I'm going to set up my high values for scaling, and I'm going to set the loop to be the whole file. So now let's go back to playing. Let's load something else. I'm just looping part of it right now, but let's go through and say we'll do Nightingale. So this whole file is almost 6 seconds long. That's set up for my scaling points. It's also my max, so you can't see that, any of that. And it reset the loop point, so the whole file is going. But now, there's my max. And I have control. If I go back to the servo movement, I have the whole thing. So that's where I'm going to stop for this. A lot of the controls we went over with playlist, a lot more modifications, and we're going to get eventually into how do we hide some of this stuff so we don't have to see everything. But this gets us looping, speed control, pitch shifting, Midi control of the loop points, and resetting the groove on the fly so when I load new sounds, I can just keep playing with them and go for the start. And that's something cool about this object, makes it easy to work with. And that's it. Thanks.